Hello, and to kick off the Access Scholarships Awesome People interview series, today I have the College Admissions Consulting Director from Prep Expert, Akbar Rahel, here with me. I wanted to chat with Akbar because it's really no secret that the process of navigating college admissions can undoubtedly at times be both foggy and pretty stressful. And since so many Access scholars are embarking on the road to pursuing higher education, whether that be college or graduate school, you naturally make a very great first guest. So, Akbar, first off, thank you so much for joining me on this interview. And second, I think it would be great to just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself and about your background.
Sure. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah.
So just by way of kind of my background, I guess I'll just kind of start on a personal note. I did my undergrad at Berkeley, went to law school at Georgetown. I litigated for many years. I actually completed 3 years of PhD program as well. But I actually started college admissions consulting decades ago. I started very young, helping friends and family. In fact, the very first person I helped, I think I was teens of, and they had been rejected from Berkeley, and I helped her with appeal, and she got in off appeal with the new
That's
essay, kind of new
awesome.
information. Yeah. So, and to this day, by the way, small tip for everybody: you can appeal your decisions within the
Yeah.
UC system. Not a lot of people know that. So, all along the way for decades, I taught, I tutored SAT, LSAT, MCAT, ACT, AP exams. I ran my own college admissions consulting company for over 10 years. And I wasn't quite ready to make the full-time transition to the college admissions space, but I always
Hmm.
loved it. My company, I got a ton of referrals. I actually churned away a ton of people every year.
Wow.
Um, Time for it. I've had people curse me out even because they were upset I didn't work with them. And I met Sean, the owner of Prep Expert, way back in 2010, 2011, about 5, 6 years before he went on Shark Tank, and presented to his company, which back then was 2400 Expert. And make a long story short, I came on several years ago and started the admissions consulting department here at Prep Expert. And, I love every minute of it.
That's super awesome. And I mean, it's really great also to hear you talk about your journey, like from starting so many years ago and like really starting out like very small and local. And now you've made it to where you are now. And you've obviously had so many accomplishments along the way. So it's super awesome to hear that. And so I think it would be really cool if you could kind of briefly explain the different types of ways that you work directly with students and families through your role at Prep Expert.
Sure, thank you. There's really two parts to what we do. The first part is working with students and families prior to the application process. I probably say the majority of families come to us before the application process, even as early as seventh grade.
Wow.
Because as everybody knows, unfortunately, everything is super confusing right now. Like, what
Hmm.
classes should you take? How many APs? Do you do the IB curriculum? Which extracurricular should you do? What extra, what summer programs are worth it? What's worth a student's time? What is not worth a student's time?
Hmm.
These are all the questions parents and students are always thinking about. And they're thinking, okay, well, what should I do? How do I plan high school? I
Right.
don't want to sleep 3 hours a night for 4 hours straight, right?
Hmm.
We work with families prior to the application process, advising on anything and everything under the moon. And the second part of what we do is we work with families during the application cycle. So a lot of families do reach out to us junior year, senior year, and we
Hmm.
step in, help them with everything related to the college application process,
Right.
from choosing schools, the early action, the early decision, the brainstorming of essays, the edits, the reviews, preparing for interviews, BSMD programs,
Yeah.
strategic positioning, anything that you can think of.
Yeah. The list goes on, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, no.
So that's kind of
Yeah, no. And I think it's super great that you guys like work to, and that you specifically work, like you can be working with a student from seventh or eighth grade all the way up until like watching them apply for schools and then go through the process of hopefully getting accepted to their dream schools, which is, I'm sure, really rewarding. Um, which does bring me
Yep.
to my next question. I'm kind of personally curious just to hear like what your favorite part is about what you do in terms of like, is there a specific type of consulting or help that you prefer or that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say it's a great privilege to work with a lot of different families and students, and really a lot of families and students stay in contact with me. I mean, many of them have even become my best friends over the years, family
Right.
friends. Um, I really sincerely enjoy seeing kids achieve what they're capable of achieving. And one of my greatest pleasures is always receiving emails and phone calls and text messages years later from people saying, "Hey, thank you very much. You made a huge difference in my life." And that's what's very meaningful
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah,
And
I can
I get
imagine.
personal satisfaction from
Yeah, totally. And I mean, even like I've experienced at some points, and I've been in the education space for way less time than you, but like even when a student texts me saying like I submitted this scholarship essay and I feel really good about it, I'm like, there's a win. So I'm sure that for you,
it.
especially with like working for a student for so long, like having them reach out years later is really just rewarding. And I can totally understand how that's like a great part of what you do for sure. Um, so I know that earlier you mentioned that there's like so many different aspects of the college admissions process. And like, as I also mentioned, it can be really confusing and there's just so many things that students should be focusing on. And I think that there's just also a lot of misconceptions and perhaps even myths about like higher education, like I guess college admissions consulting. So I was wondering if you could kind of maybe speak to any of those myths and debunk them for us.
Right, right. I'd probably say one big myth is that college admissions consultants are for like uber billionaires who want to buy their way into college or something.
Right.
Especially with the varsity blues scandal, which I'm sure a lot
Mhm.
of people watched on Netflix and stuff. There was this impression that somehow the whole, everything is just fixed for the uber rich and the uber wealthy, right? But it's not really the case. I mean, we work with a wide range of families. I probably say at least 40, 45, 50% of the families at Prep Expert qualify for need-based financial aid. And the college application process itself is actually very complicated.
Mhm.
And there's so much going on in it, and there's so many factors that affect a kid's admission that and by the way, this is not really fair. I mean, this is a whole other discussion, right?
Right.
Is just process itself, right?
Mhm.
And, the myth is that it's only for, people who are worth $1 billion and want to buy their kids into, the top 5 colleges or whatever it may be. But in
Mhm.
reality, anybody that's applying for college admissions for college should really think about getting help because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of great universities,
Mhm.
and many of those universities are far more competitive than people may imagine
Right.
now. I think it's one of the big myths is that people think it's just only for certain class of people or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it's super great that the like clientele or the group of students and families that you guys work with is so diverse in that sense, and because really like all students could use help with navigating the college admissions process. And so again, super great that you guys really provide like a wide range of opportunities for anyone to be able to access that help if they're interested in receiving it. So, as you mentioned, you've been in this industry for quite a long time, and there's no doubt in my mind that you've probably witnessed like some dramatic changes over that span of time in relation to the college admissions process. So, I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on how the higher education space as a whole has been changing? What do you think current high school students seeking like a college education can expect from the college process in the upcoming months or even years?
Right. I'd probably say, I mean, Overall, I think the most obvious change is that the whole process has just become more competitive.
Hmm.
There's a lot more highly qualified applicants. And I'll qualify that by also kind of saying that it's also a reflection of the quality of the students. I mean, the students nowadays are so motivated to do
Hmm.
amazing things, to think big, to think about helping the world, to think about,
Right.
starting organizations. So it's not necessarily negative that it's become competitive because it just shows that there's so many more kids just trying to do so much more.
Hmm.
Um, I was giving a live presentation 2 years ago in front of, I don't know, 30 parents. And one of the parents asked the question like, hey, if my kid does all these activities, is that a little bit contrived for the application process? And it kind of is in some respects because you think about, your applications and how you present yourself. But
Hmm.
also it's not in a sense, it's not contrived in the sense that, students are motivated, right? They're motivated to
Right.
start organizations. They're motivated to do things for people. They're motivated to conceive things. They're motivated just in general. Like for example, one of the kids that I worked with this past year who got into, a lot of great colleges, they already had a company and they're trying to, and I'm
Wow.
just speaking broadly right now, they're trying to kind of put forth new healthcare initiatives in countries that need more advanced healthcare. And it's
Hmm.
amazing to see that kind of stuff. So that's
Yeah.
one big change. I will say one quick thing, which is one more quick thing is that some things have not changed. And one of the
Mm.
things that have not changed is that a transcript still is the most fundamental aspect of an application. So sometimes nowadays, with all the changes going on and testing and kind of everything else that you
Hmm.
hear about, testing, of course, is still critical, even at the
Hmm.
test colleges. You know, the bread and butter can't be lost in the process, which is someone's transcript.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think especially like I was in high school not too long ago, and like I remember sometimes I would feel like I was stressed between trying to balance extracurriculars and my grades, but then ultimately my parents would say, extracurriculars are super important, but your grades are number one because that's number one at what the schools look at, right? So I'm totally with you on the fact that your transcript will always be important for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and so I feel like a great way to end this little chat is just with some advice from you as the expert. So if you had like one or two tips or pieces of advice for students to help them be successful in their college admissions journey, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, one big tip I have for every student is, focus on yourself. Focus on being the best person that you can be. Focus on your strengths. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I mean,
Hmm.
whether it's reading or STEM or whatever it is. And block out the noise and just focus on yourself. Focus on the process. Just focus on the day to day, what needs to get done.
Hmm.
Sometimes people want to start and they're already thinking about, okay, well, where am I going to end up? And as anyone knows, it's the daily grind, it's the daily commitment that leads to the best results. Whether you're running a marathon or you're weightlifting or you're swimming or you're, working on a paper or whatever it is,
Hmm.
it's just kind of, focus on the process. And I always tell all the kids that we work with, there's a fine line between working hard and being stressed. I don't like kids being stressed out. I don't think it's healthy. At the
Hmm.
same time, I do encourage people to put forth their best effort. So that's my piece of advice. Work hard, be the best you can be, but don't get stressed out. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and especially like as you mentioned, things just getting more and more competitive, it's it's becoming that type of space where students can easily get stressed out or kind of push themselves to the point where like they're doing more harm than good or just kind of making it destructive. And so I think reminding reminding students and giving that advice and putting that out there is really great and very valuable. And I'm sure all the access scholarships students can learn from that for sure. So thank you, Akbar, so much for hopping on and for telling us all about Prep Expert and about everything that you do, and of course, leaving all of your tips and advice for students.